Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. If 1923 really brings back this character, it could risk Yellowstone Season 5's worst mistake. One of Taylor Sheridan's characters has a chance to reappear in 1923 Season 2. But if he does, it could repeat one of the biggest problems with Yellowstone Season 5. Taylor Sheridan has played 4 characters in his own shows and movies, and they range from unnamed characters to main cast members. One of Sheridan's cameo characters in particular, Charles Goodnight from 1883, could soon join the cast of 1923 Season 2. While it is possible for Goodnight to appear in 1923, there's some evidence that may prove it's not a great idea for Sheridan to reprise the role. Yellowstone Season 5 was the end of the show, and for many longtime fans, it felt underwhelming. Kevin Costner's departure from Yellowstone certainly didn't help, but there was also a general sense that the story of the Dutton family should have amounted to more. There were plenty of reasons why Yellowstone Season 5 failed to live up to expectations, but one of the more salient problems with the show's final outing was Taylor Sheridan himself. Sheridan's writing was fine, but his Yellowstone character hurt that show, and it could be a bad omen for Charles Goodnight in 1923. In the premiere of 1923 Season 2, Tiana Rainwater, Amina Neves, and Pete Plentyclouds, Jeremy Ghana, discovered they had wandered onto a ranch after meeting a cowboy. As the cowboy explained, the land they were on belonged to a Mr. Goodnight, and Taylor Sheridan played Charles Goodnight in 1883. Runs his horse, Michael Spears, then declared he was going to try to meet with Goodnight, which means Sheridan could reprise his 1883 role in 1923 Season 2. While it's far from confirmed that Sheridan will play Goodnight again, reprising his character may be more trouble than it's worth. If Taylor Sheridan does seize his opportunity to appear in 1923 Season 2 as Charles Goodnight, it has the potential to be just as divisive as his appearance as Travis Wheatley in Yellowstone. If 1923 takes a few moments to focus on Charles Goodnight and have him interact with Tiana and her group, it will only detract from the rest of the show's more interesting stories. Watching Goodnight brag about his relationship with Quanah Parker wouldn't be nearly as interesting as moving closer to the confrontation between Tiana, Marshall Kent, Jamie McShane, and Father Renaud, Sebastian Roque, for example. Charles Goodnight's potential appearance in 1923 Season 2 is also extremely reminiscent to one of Yellowstone Season 5's worst mistakes. Travis Wheatley. Taylor Sheridan had appeared as Travis in a handful of Yellowstone episodes dating back to Season 1, but in Yellowstone Season 5, he became a major part of the show. In fact, Travis got such a massive role in Yellowstone Season 5 that he stole precious time away from the much more pressing stories of the show's main characters. The ending of Yellowstone already felt rushed, and Travis only made it worse. A great example of the effect Travis had on Yellowstone is his story with Beth, Kelly Riley. In the final episodes of the show, instead of pursuing her revenge against Jamie, Wes Bentley, Yellowstone had Beth deal with Travis for an extended period of time. That time was quite valuable, and it would have been put to better use by exploring the ends of some of Sheridan's most beloved characters, rather than exploring the life of a small recurring character. Travis was fine as a bit of comedic humor that appeared once a season, but once he became a central figure of Yellowstone, the show suffered. Travis Wheatley is just a sign of a problem that has been happening in several of Taylor Sheridan's cameo appearances. Even Cody Spears, Sheridan's lioness character and the second most recent role he played, got an overly important role in the ending of the show, and he stole time away from Joe's Zoe Saldana story. Sheridan has to figure out how to write a cameo character who adds to the overall story of his shows, instead of feeling like an unnecessary self-insert before he makes another on-screen appearance. Unfortunately, Sheridan may not have learned that lesson in time for 1923 Season 2. One of the oddest parts of Sheridan's recent indulgent cameos is that he used to be much better at them. Sheridan's characters in Hell or High Water and 1883 were both prime examples of a good cameo. They were important for a bit, they did their thing, and they promptly left, so their respective stories could refocus on the main characters. If Goodnight does appear in 1923 Season 2, and he's like Travis in Yellowstone, rather than the cowboy in Hell or High Water, he may end up exacerbating 1923's already slow pace and bringing Tiana's story to a grinding halt. The Yellowstone franchise has built its empire on the backs of compelling characters, sweeping Western landscapes, and dramatic storytelling. However, it has also made its fair share of missteps along the way. With the news that 1923 might be bringing back a certain character, fans are rightfully concerned that the show could be setting itself up for the same major mistake that plagued Yellowstone Season 5. While 1923 is a prequel and offers a different perspective on the Dutton legacy, its potential decision to resurrect or revisit a character in a way that disrupts continuity could be disastrous. Yellowstone Season 5's mistake: over-reliance on nostalgia. One of the biggest issues with Yellowstone Season 5 was its over-reliance on nostalgia. The show, in an effort to keep fans engaged, leaned too heavily on bringing back past characters, revisiting old conflicts, and stretching out storylines that should have naturally concluded. Instead of pushing forward, it became stuck in a loop of callbacks, making it feel more like a greatest hits reel than a fresh, compelling season. If 1923 follows suit and decides to bring back a character in a forced or inorganic way, it could suffer the same fate. While fans appreciate nods to previous storylines, there's a fine line between meaningful continuity and cheap fan service. The Yellowstone universe thrives when it introduces new, complex characters who add to the tapestry of the Dutton family saga, not when it recycles old ones to artificially boost engagement. The risks of bringing a character back. Bringing a character back in 1923 poses several risks, especially if it's done in a way that undermines the narrative integrity of the show. 1. Disrupting historical continuity. 1923 is set in a time when the Dutton family is still establishing itself in Montana, fighting external and internal battles for survival. If a character from Yellowstone, or even 1883, were to suddenly reappear, either through a flashback, retcon, or some other narrative trick, it could create significant continuity problems. The history of the Duttons is already intricate, and shoehorning a character into the timeline without proper context could leave fans scratching their heads. 2. Devaluing emotional stakes. One of the most powerful elements of Taylor Sheridan's storytelling is the weight of consequences. When a character dies or exits the show, their absence lingers, shaping the motivations and actions of those left behind. If 1923 were to suddenly bring back a character who was previously thought to be gone, it could cheapen the emotional impact of their original departure. This was one of the issues with Yellowstone Season 5, where some characters' arcs felt undone rather than concluded. 3. Losing the show's unique identity. Each installment of the Yellowstone franchise, whether it's the main show, 1883, or 1923, has a unique tone and purpose. 1883 was a raw, emotional trek through the American frontier. 1923 is a darker, more complex look at the early 20th century struggles faced by the Duttons. If it starts to mirror Yellowstone too closely by making similar storytelling decisions, it could lose what makes it special. Bringing back an old character for the sake of familiarity might dilute the fresh and gripping narrative that 1923 has built so far. Who could 1923 bring back? Speculation is rampant about which character 1923 could be reviving. Some theories suggest it could be a character from 1883 such as Elsa Dutton, despite her tragic fate. Others believe it could be someone from Yellowstone in an elaborate flashback or connection to the present-day storyline. If it's Elsa, the show would have to tread carefully. Her death was a defining moment in 1883, symbolizing the brutal reality of frontier life. Bringing her back could risk undermining that emotional weight. If it's a character from Yellowstone, it would have to be done in a way that makes sense historically. Otherwise, it could feel like a gimmick rather than a genuine storytelling choice. How 1923 can avoid Yellowstone's mistake. If 1923 does choose to revisit a past character, it must be done with purpose and precision. Here are a few ways it can avoid the mistakes of Yellowstone Season 5. 1. Ensure the return serves the story. A character's return should not feel like a desperate attempt to keep audiences engaged. If a past character is reintroduced, their presence must serve the story in a meaningful way, adding depth rather than distraction.